Sorry, the music was still in my head there. Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Rossier, and I've got a great show planned tonight. Don't forget, today is Wiz Wednesday there, Wiz Day at the Wiz Comic. You can get a copy of The Whimsical Wiz, the complete 2023 collection on Amazon. Don't also forget the Zorro books I've had the pleasure to work on. So Zorro's, whoops, which hand? Okay, sorry. Zorro's Swordplane Romance is a new book by Bold Venture Press. You can get on Amazon and at boldventurepress.com, as well as the previous one, Zorro's Exploits, both on Bold Venture Press and Amazon. Just type in Zorro. Exploits or Zorro Swordplane Romance. I illustrated one in here and two in the other. And don't forget to go to akidinacomic.com and sign up and subscribe and get your newspapers full of comics. The Wiz appears in here 7 times a year. Please go and check it out. A lot of great strips in here. I have read this cover to cover. Everything in here is fantastic. Some of the people who've been on the show are in here. And some others who are in here might be coming on soon. Anyway, let's bring on our guest. Tonight, I got a guy, it's very late for him or very early, depending how you want to look at it. He's all the way overseas, and I'm looking for the proper mouse. Let's bring on Ged Hartland. Hello, Ged. How you doing?
How you doing, Michael? All right.
Well, thank you for coming on. Let me move these back here so I don't do any damage. First off, thanks for coming on. I've been eager to talk with you about your project. It looks like a lot of fun, and you know what? I like to get. We're going to get into some stuff, but I want to, say it up front. Something I told you in, off screen, before we came on. Your book is about wrestling, or at least focuses on wrestlers.
Yeah.
I was never a big wrestling fan. I in the 80s, I obviously watched back when, it was Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, Macho Man, all those guys, like that era.
Sure.
But I never really was diehard into it. I have family that was, I have friends that were, but I was always kind of like, it's not for me. Right. But when you sent me a copy of the script, and as I read your script, I got really excited and really into the story. So what I think I've come to realize is there are certain things on television, like I'm not into horror films, but I read a horror comic. I'm not into wrestling, but I'm definitely going to be reading a wrestling comic. I'm telling you that up front before we begin. All right, and that's for the audience too. I think it's a really well written script.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to, and like I told you, I have to read like the last 5 pages or so. But I've been enjoying everything that's been going on in the script.
That's awesome.
So before we get into your story, which is called Starr Slam with 2 R's.
Yeah.
Let's find out about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into writing, into comics, things like that,
I mean, I think from an early age, I was just always into storytelling. I kind of started off going to the cinema with my dad every weekend, and kind of grew up on all those late 80s, 90s blockbusters, that kind of stuff. So my evenings were spent getting all my film comic magazines out and everything, and just drawing relentlessly. And then when I went to uni, I did a module on writing for film and TV, and I was just hooked from then. Really, I started writing scripts as soon as I finished, and I was Starr Slam was actually one of the very first scripts I did, really, and I was basically writing it, and I put it out, and I got really good feedback to it, but it was always kind of, this is too expensive, you're probably not going to get this made realistically, so it kind of got put on the shelf for a while. And then during COVID, I had my first son, and I was staying up late, obviously, and I was there was no hope trying to read a novel and everything. You're trying to stay awake and everything. So I just got back into reading graphic novels quite a lot. And yeah, like post COVID, I was like, maybe I should have a crack at turning one into a script, turning one of my scripts into a graphic novel, and that was the one that really stood out to me. And yeah, I was. It wasn't that hard to kind of do because the characters jumped off the page, the action one's larger than life, and then I put out like a sample really to a few people, and ASAP Imagination kind of got back in touch and really loved it, and yeah, it's just been kind of go from there really with it all.
And speaking of ASAP Imagination, hey, both good for you staying up. Great to see you, Mike. Hey, 80s. I'm assuming it's 80s on there. How you
I
doing?
would presume so, yeah.
Uh,
Dedicated supporter.
Listen, Hades is a great guy. Been on the show before. I actually have to have a chat with him very, very soon. I'm behind on talking to him, but yeah. So before we get it again into your story, I want to just learn a little bit more. Some of the comics that you read, whether it was as a kid or when you got back into during the pandemic, reading graphic novels. Who were you reading, or what were you reading, and like who were some of the writers that stood out to you?
um, so when I was a kid, I was just always like I was probably I dare I say a bit boring and stuff because I was always gravitated towards like the Superman stories and the
Nothing
Captain
wrong with
America stories. I like that stoicism even as a
that.
kid. um, I, like I didn't really tend to lean towards like the cooler ones like X-Men and everything. And then but when after the pandemic and stuff, I think really the one writer that really kicked me in was like Brian K. Vaughan, and just like his work. It's just something that really connected with us. And there was a Mark Miller story that was Wolverine versus basically the entire MCU. And it's like a story where he's tied in with the hand and everything that I thought was really cool. But then I also discovered Saga at that point, and
That one I've never read. Everyone recommends to me. I just haven't had a chance to read it, but
it's
I
just
do need to pick up a copy of that book.
that book floors me as a yeah. With the simple like one or two lines, he can kind of like break your heart and everything throughout. And I think because it's a story about parenthood and everything, and now I've got two sons and stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's one that really hits home for us. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough about that story.
I was actually just recommended the other day by someone a book called Low. I've never seen it, never heard of it. I
Okay,
think it's an image book, but it looks fantastic. The artwork just looks unbelievable. I know nothing about the story, but it just seems like it's on that. I don't know if it's on the Saga level, but like
right,
from the way he talked about it, it was very high up. That it's like I'm surprised. It's shocking. I never heard of it.
okay.
So
I'll have to check that one out then as
yeah.
well.
Okay, so you were reading like those books, and did okay. So you had Starr Slam already written, kind of as a screenplay, as you
Hmm.
mentioned.
Yeah.
When you changed it to a comic, obviously there's a little difference in there's some difference in writing, but was the stuff that you were reading, did that influence you on how to adapt it as a comic, or did you just kind of be in your head say I'm good, like I know what I want to do, this is the comic, it doesn't matter what influences you're pulling from, you know what I mean, like.
Yeah. I don't really think I was drawing kind of from like other comics. I had such a specific kind of because it had been in my head for like almost like 10 years really. I kind of visualized almost like every single scene in it like very very clearly. So yeah, I didn't really struggle to kind of convert it to a comic script really.
Okay.
And like I say, some of the set pieces and everything, and the action in it, I just found quite natural and fluid, really, to kind of convert to like the comic panels. And but when I started working with ASAP Imagination and the artist Witsi Trujano, his work as well kind of really like breathed like
Mhm.
extra life into it as well, which was really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the artwork. Let's just show what some of the artwork looks like really quickly here. I'm going to show first the Kickstarter page. Let's set that up. Share screen window. Come on, share. All right, so these are some of the characters
Yes.
from the, and there's nothing else down there really. Um, which the really nice designs. I like this a lot. Can you tell us who these characters are?
Yeah, sure. So the character on the left, in the white t-shirt, his name is Jack Dallas. He's your all-American Hulk Hogan,
Mhm.
um, white kind of vanilla baby face. He's been the champ for so long, the longest reigning, broke all the records, been the biggest draw for the company forever, and basically, uh, he's refused to kind of move from the top. Really struggled to kind of get out of the business. Uh, and then on the other side, the guy with the mask, the face painted mask,
Mhm.
his name is a Spartan, and he's a guy that never made it to the top. Basically, he kind of right underneath there, but was never given the kind of ball and run with it. And then the two characters at the back, the lady is named Diane. She's one of the valets, and in the world of like 80s wrestling and everything, obviously never got the chance to like be be the main star, have a voice. It was just kind of seen as a bit of eye candy. And then as this story's set when they're veteran wrestlers, and they've kind of fallen on hard times, there's kind of like a lot of scars from that, and kind of like a lot of resentment that's built up from that. And then the other chap, with the fedora, is his name's Caleb Curtis. He's your kind of Undertaker, Sting, mysterious figure, and he's got a pet called a pet wolf, called Luna, and they have a very cool like kind of brother sister dynamic in the story. Um, and then in the center is your villain of the story, who's aptly named Scar. So the story itself is all of these veteran wrestlers. I like to think of it as like they were the golden age of wrestling, but the golden age is starting to rust now, and they are traveling cross country to their next gig, fallen on hard times, all don't get on, and then all of a sudden this alien ship smashes into the dirt next to them, housing Scar, and they just get pulled into this intergalactic kind of invasion story that will unfold over 5 issues. It's just a fun ride, I'd like to think, from start to finish.
Yeah, no, listen. I mean, it sounds like a great idea using wrestlers and then having a sci-fi twist to it.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. Uh, first of all, again, who's the artist on here? Because these designs are fantastic.
Witsi Trujano.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done some awesome work for us. Because when we were initially looking at like what kind of art to do for it, the kind of idea I had in my head was I wanted it to feel like almost like an 80s 90s like toy line, like that kind of
Mhm.
GI Joe, Mask, Thundercats esque, like that 80s kind of cartoon
Yeah.
feel to it. Um, and yeah, I mean, he came on board, and as soon as I saw the first kind of couple of drafts and everything, I was just like, oh, this guy just gets it straight away, and he's just done some awesome work with all the action and everything so far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So obviously you're a wrestling fan,
Yes.
right? Um, how long? How long has it been since childhood? And you know, who when you look at wrestling, because again, I didn't really watch it.
Mm.
My wife watched it more in the '90s and stuff, and she was a bit of a fan. Were you watching, you know, wrestling, from America, or were you watching, or is there like a WW equivalent over, in England?
Yeah, so I got into it when I was, I think, about 7, 8 years old, and we had the VHS versions of the pay-per-views from America, basically. So you had the covers with like the bright characters like Hogan, Warrior, Big Boss Man, Taker, just everyone like that, the Million Dollar Man. You looked at those covers and you're just like, what is this as a kid? So we would kind of sit there like as a group of us, our friends, just like watching those over and over again, and then basically, even though they told us not to do the moves, we'd be doing them all on the sofas and everything.
Yeah.
And then I kind of drifted out a bit of it, and then just when I was a teenager, really, as well, a couple of my friends started talking about it, and I was just like, and they were saying how kind of cool it had got, because you kind of went into like the Attitude Era, which was when you had Rock, Austin, Triple H, all of these characters kind of come in that were a bit more edgy, a bit more adult. You had the NWO in WCW as well, and so I just started watching it on like a Friday night, off the back of like how buzzed they were about it, and yeah, I was just kind of hooked from the word go. There was a storyline that was actually running at the time, which was like a real. It felt very comic booky. So you had on one side the what were classed as a union, and you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then on the other side you had this faction that was kind of called the Corporate Ministry, which was led by Taker, a load of kind of the darker, more sinister characters in the WWE at the time, and it was just those two groups kind of clashing every week. So it had a very, I guess, kind of comic book, filmic kind of quality to it,
Mhm.
and from then on, really, I was kind of hooked, and I've kind of dipped in and out ever since, really. So whenever there's like a big storyline, I'm kind of tuned in to see what's happening.
So you still watch that?
Yeah, yeah, I still check it out. Yeah, yeah, I still keep following. Like, there's been an awesome story that's unfolded over like 3 years, I think it is now, in the WWE, with the like this group called the Bloodline, with like led by Roman Reigns, and they went up against Cody Rhodes, who has quite a like an illustrious history with his own dad. So yeah, that's just been an awesome kind of story to follow, and it's just been a massive hit for the audience as well.
I love that. It's funny because I don't follow it, and I just love hearing about it. Um, and I can hear your love for wrestling when
Yeah.
you talk about it. It really is. At one point I'm assuming it was a really big part of your life, and
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, definitely. I just find the whole lifestyle kind of fascinating, really, because it's you go out there. I mean, they work like 5 or 6 days a week, I think, almost, and because aside from the TV shows, they do like house shows every night of the week, and they've got to do a show, get banged about in the ring, pick themselves up, drive, you know, like 100 miles down the road to their next place, somehow work out the next day, and then do it all again, and do all this storytelling in the ring as well. And yeah, I just think it's a crazy life, really. So I think I've just always been intrigued by it. And they're just like such fascinating characters as well, kind of like on and off screen. So yeah, it's just hooked me.
that's actually one of the reasons why I'm shocked I'm not a fan, is because of the way the characters are and the story are,
Mm,
and the stories go. But it just never clicked with me,
mm,
on the TV, on the screen here. Um, Now, when you were creating, obviously you mentioned who some of your characters are, kind of who they're like. So obviously you based it off them. As just, and I'm just curious about this. As a fan, did you write in um, any moments from like matches that you loved throughout watching in your lifetime into the story, like certain things that were done to these characters, or like, oh, that was from WrestleMania, whatever, and
Mm.
you ever did you think of that or do any of that or?
Yeah, I definitely drew inspiration from some kind of big moments, I guess. I guess they kind of subconsciously kind of go in there. So, for example, the Spartan character, the masked character. Obviously, there are there's a kind of easy allusion to like someone like the Ultimate Warrior there as well, but um, there's also kind of a bit I think of like Bret Hart in there as well, who's like a very serious character who kind of takes his craft very very seriously, and there's been moments where him and Hogan had friction over the years and everything, about who was the top guy and whether Hogan would pass the torch, and so yeah, that I felt definitely kind of seeped into like my like the storytelling side of it, because Jack Dallas, who's a kind of main baby face and everything, as much as the crowd love him and everything, he's definitely got some hang-ups and everything, which is something that kind of I think everyone who knows wrestling kind of knows about characters like Hogan, really, is that they're kind of almost like maybe sometimes afraid to, you know, let someone kind of step forward and kind of take over from them as well, because they're worried they'll lose their spot. So there's definitely a bit of that playing into it.
All right. Now, with these characters, because I got to ask. Obviously, you said they were based on. So, can you actually, before I get to that question, you mentioned they're veteran wrestling stars.
Hmm.
What constitutes a veteran? Like, what age group are they at now that they're like retired? Because they look kind of like young and healthy in these images here. I mean, they look like they're some age, but they don't look super old. So what age group are these veteran actors? I
We're
mean wrestlers.
we're talking like 50s, maybe edging towards 60 and everything, but it's kind of great, and I guess it's the lifestyle and everything, because a lot of these guys take good care of themselves, really, like physically and everything.
Yeah.
Because when you look at, say, when Hogan stepped into the ring with The Rock, when they had a massive match at one of the WrestleManias, and Hogan, I think, was pushing 60 at that point, and but he still looks incredible. Like I don't think there was a wrinkle on him or anything.
Yeah.
But it's like the physical toll of it and everything. So whilst they might look okay, it's whether they can actually pick themselves up from the mat as well. That's the big problem, and like kind of the psychological side of it as well, that I think is really interesting as they kind of get older, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. No, that's great. Before I forget, I want to put a link to this into the chat for everyone. So whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you'll have a link that you can get notified when this goes live, because this goes live on the 30th, I believe you said.
Yeah, just at the
All
end
right.
of October. Yeah.
All right. So end of October, this is going to go live, and which is what, 2 weeks from now, right?
Yes.
2 weeks from now. I do wish there was a little bit more that I can read on the page. Like I want to know more about this. Um, but yeah, no, um, this is a really nice idea. It's different from what I've seen before. I've seen sci-fi battles of you know what do you call it? God, like MMA type of stuff, and I've
Mm,
seen those, but I've never really seen a sci-fi wrestling story. You
yeah.
know. Now, I'm sorry, my throat's bothering me a little bit today. Um, what made you go with veteran wrestlers as opposed to more of the stars of the era this time period's happening in?
Um, I think really it just made sense from a character's point of view um, that as they kind of get older and everything, there would just be more hang-ups. There's more to explore, I feel. And I think there were probably actually certain stories that influence or certain movies really. I mean, one particular that really stood out was something like Galaxy Quest,
Okay,
um, which I just absolutely love. I just think he's one of the best kind of comedies of all time,
that's a
and
great film.
yeah. So and unlike I was always like a big Star Trek fan and everything, so that like really ticked a lot, like scratched a lot of itches for us. And I think when I was originally doing the idea, I think if they'd have been established stars, there's no kind of real conflict there. And but yeah, it's kind of if they've fallen on hard times and struggling to make ends meet, I just felt there was just so much kind of to explore there.
Yeah,
And at the time, the characters themselves, I don't really remember struggling with it all kind of flowed really
yeah,
really quickly really when I was doing the first drafts for it.
nice, nice. Now, with writing, because I want to talk a little bit about writing because it's not often I have strictly a writer on the show.
Okay.
I usually have more people who write and draw. Once in a while I have just it's just strictly a writer. But I want to ask some, get to know you in your writing process because
Hmm.
I enjoy writing. I do. I don't do it as much because I'm more of an illustrator.
Mm.
But I do write my own comics. I do, you know, write stuff. Um, your process on coming up with or creating a comic. Now, this is not this book specifically, or maybe hold on. Is this your first comic that you've written, or
It is my first
okay?
comment,
So
yeah.
then what we got to do is talk about then change my line of questioning a little bit. Is now obviously you wrote this as a screenplay first, and there's a difference in writing for film and or live action animation, whatever it is,
Yeah.
um, as opposed to writing comics. Did you now you didn't find it difficult because you already said you kind of knew, but did you find the process of translating something that was for the screen into a comic difficult at all in the sense of format for you?
Um, at first, obviously, because I've been writing for in the TV and script, the movie scripts kind of style for a while. Yeah, it's always a bit of an adjustment. Um, I think probably the biggest challenge was how do I turn this from like one complete story into several issues, really, which don't feel that like they're not like kind of jarring at the end of an issue where it's just like a kind of cut off point. Um, so it was kind of tweaking a few bits here and there, really. So it feels like when you start and end an issue, the characters have kind of moved forward a bit, the stories move forward a bit. There's a definitive kind of like cliffhanger as such, really, for each issue. So yeah, it was more I guess like the pacing of it really that needed to be kind of tweaked. And you want the reader to be kind of getting to the end and being like, I can't wait for the next issue and everything. Whereas with a film as such, really, it's kind of you're always building towards that kind of grand finale. So there was like a few bits where I felt like actually as a comic, it needed like an extra action beat in there or something like that, really. Or it also gave me the opportunity as well to kind of breathe a bit more backstory into one or two of the characters, which was fun. So I feel like each issue has a slight leaning towards one of the characters a bit more. So when you get to that last issue, it all culminates. It all brings them all together as one.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Um, and when you're writing these characters, is there anyone that like particularly stands out to you as difficult to write, easy to write? I mean, you've been living with these characters for a long time, so I'm
Mm,
assuming you're familiar with them.
yeah.
But is there or and if and okay, and if there's not one difficult or hard or easy to write, is there one that's your favorite to write for?
So my favorite character to write for is the chap at the back with a yellow
Yeah,
hat, Caleb Curtis.
like
Just because, as I say, he's got I think a really fun dynamic with his pet wolf. Um, and having whenever you've got an animal in there and everything, it always kind of lends a bit more, has a bit more heart in there. Um, so I really loved writing their kind of relationship, and the way the wolf kind of looks after him and is like a sister, and they annoy each other, and I think they have a great kind of certainly a great finale as well to the story as well in what happens to them. Um, in terms of this struggling to write characters, I think that the hardest ones are the ones when you've kind of got to cover like exposition almost really. You kind of got to share like maybe the plot dynamics or like yeah, the details of things. So there's a character that's not featured on this page, which is an army general that kind of comes into the story, and uh, the fact they've got to share like detail of what's kind of going on, for the reasoning behind the alien ship crashing and everything. I guess kind of making sure that kind of like weaves into the story naturally rather than just being a dump of exposition is always tricky. But whenever I was like studying writing, for film as well, everyone always says kind of the exposition side of things is always the hardest. I've looked at um, like scenes where like Spielberg does it and how he does it on screen and stuff in things like Raiders of the Lost Ark and everything, and how he kind of blocks it out and uses the characters in spaces and everything to kind of do things. I've just always found really interesting because he's a master at it.
yeah,
So yeah, it's just really cool to kind of like look at that and think, okay, how can I make this interesting and not just be like a character talking endlessly about something.
yeah. Um, since this was your first comic, looking back, would you do anything differently than what you've done to this one, or you happy with how it turned out?
I'm really happy to bring this one to life. Definitely, it's a really weird feeling because like I feel with this one, like life imitates art a bit almost really because you know this script was on the shelf. I'd kind of put it to bed, to be honest, for several years really,
Yeah,
and then the whole point, the whole kind of dynamic behind all of these characters is the fact that they're kind of getting a second chance to kind of redeem themselves and everything. And I just feel that the script in itself by ASAP Imagination saying, yeah, we're going to kind of try and help you bring this to life and everything was just really like kind of sweet and everything. So yeah, the fact I've kind of got a second chance to kind of try and share these characters, with people is awesome. And yeah, I'm just kind of chuffed to bits really to be able to have a chance to kind of hopefully put them out into the world. Really,
yeah, that's great. Um, you said I can show the one page you sent me, right?
sure, yeah, 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 of course.
So there it is. Uh, um, this is just a one page from the comic, just to kind of show you what they would get. And I actually remember reading this scene today. I was
Mm,
rereading the script because I read the script from beginning to end when you first sent it to me like a month ago, but I
yeah.
needed to refresh my memory. That's why I have like 5 pages left. um, but I was reading it today to refresh my, and I remember the scene where it says, I don't remember his name, but this character looks up and sees the steel bar in his hand, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. So this is like the opening kind of like prologue to the story. So this is the some of the characters from back in the day, from one of like their biggest events. So the three characters actually featured there are three that feature in the story. So the chap in the white is called Johnny Reno. He's your 80s like yuppie character, always looking to make money, but uh, in the modern age, in like kind of in the story itself, he's lost all of his money and everything, so he's a complete um, like hypocrite, really. And then the chap that's just kind of coming into view there in the green, that's the hardcore character of the series. His name's like Napalm Sam, and he's endured every kind of bit of pain possible, really. But I think he's got a really interesting reason of why he's endured that pain and everything, and that will kind of come out as the story kind of goes on. But yeah, th- the idea was to kind of capture that feel of like WrestleMania, the scale of it, and everything early on, and like how big these stars were, and then when we pick up with them in the present day and everything, and how far they've kind of really fallen, and they've like dropped off the radar pretty much.
I gotta say, for the artists, just coming from an artist's perspective, I love the way he drew this crowd scene.
Mm,
I
yeah, it's
know
awesome.
it it just looks like little spots, but when you look at it from far away, it really does feel like there's the crowd. Everything's. I love it. Like you got the lights coming on, like almost like they're taking photos, and
Yeah,
he did a great job. And I love his composition of scenes and his choice of angles.
yeah,
You know, um, really nice stuff.
yeah, yeah. I'm really chuffed how it kind of came out, to be honest. And yeah, it just every panel I saw and everything, it just kind of, it was almost like exactly how I'd seen it in my head. And yeah, he just did an awesome job. But it
And
was great work by ASAP as well. They kind of took the brief, and they're so collaborative and everything, and they kind of got what I was looking for straight away. They knew the artists they wanted to reach out to for this. It wasn't like I went through like several or anything like that.
yeah.
So it was great in
And
that
how
way.
did you connect with ASAP Imagination?
So I think it was on, yeah, I think it was on Twitter or X now. They're actually looking for people for submissions. So I sent them a sample to Laurie, the editor, and uh, she again isn't a wrestling fan, but she got back to me straight away. I think I'd sent like a 6-page sample, and she was just like, "I just want to keep reading this," which is a
But that's how I
good.
felt. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is I'm not a fan of wrestling, but like when I read your script, I'm like, I just need to get to the next page, to the next page. I was really enjoying it.
And yeah, so I uh, I sent the full script, and it was just so quick though that with them coming back to us and just being like, yeah, we want to kind of help you bring this to life, and it's just been for the last like several months really forming this kind of concept art, the couple of panels and everything to kind of help with the Kickstarter, and they've just been kind of guiding me through how to make a Kickstarter work and everything. Because, like I say, this is my first one. But they're just an awesome team, and yeah, they've got so many awesome titles on their books now and everything. They're really growing and growing.
Yeah, I've read some of the titles they have. They're really good stuff there.
Mm.
I think what they do is fantastic. I did a month. Was it? I don't know if it was this past August or July or whenever it was, but I did a month of ASAP Imagination. So Hades was on, Lori was on.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember everyone else now, but I did a whole month of them, and they're great people.
Yeah,
I love the not just what they put out, but the passion behind what they do. They really truly love comics. They want to make comics, and they want to make good comics with people who are going to make, good comics. They look for good, people, and everyone I've chatted with that's part of ASAP Imagination, I am a fan of,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's really interesting because like I've done it where I've submitted scripts and everything before, like movie scripts and everything, and like on the odd occasion I've worked with maybe a producer, and you get the dreaded script back with like red lines all over it and everything, like change this. I mean, I had one once, not this script, and another one, a horror script, where the, the main thing was kill the main character in the first 10 minutes and stuff. Like, I don't like him and everything, and I was just like, like, how he's like the driving force behind the whole thing and everything, and it was just like, I don't like him, get rid of him. And I was just like, oh, okay, this isn't gonna be that collaborative, I don't think. But when I didn't have that with ASAP at all. It wasn't like change this or anything like that. It was just they would just kind of gave me pointers of like, do this to kind of bring this kind of character out a bit more, or like nip and tuck this bit. It was just things like that, really, to kind of make the story better, rather than kind of like expressing like, this is what we want you to do, and like, we think this will tick a box and everything. It was just like, just trying to make the story, as it was the core of it, as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah, no, that's one of the reasons I like it. And this is coming out in their Any One World line.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
All right, cool. No, that's great stuff. It's one of those things where, like, I know. Hold on, we got a comment. Why is my mouse doing this today?
I can see that's from Hades.
Yeah,
He's a big wrestling fan as well, so.
Cheers. Appreciate the kind words. Really, what's that? Chuffed for?
Chuffed, yeah.
Is that a British word? I've never heard that.
Yeah, it means like pleased.
Okay, good to know. Starr Slam is awesome, and definitely a wrestling. Yes. Now Starr Slam, obviously, because of the sci-fi ness of it and the alien coming down. But why the two R's? Just curious.
I I was really looking at how do I make this feel like a wrestling pay-per-view title, and I went through various titles before I kind of came to Starr Slam. There was, I think, Star Brawl, Power Slammers. There was loads and loads and everything, and but there was actually like a WCW pay-per-view that was called Starcade, which had a similar double R.
Okay.
And yeah, I just kind of felt when I put that on the page and I did Starr Slam, I just felt, oh yeah, that's the one, really. And I would hope that wrestling fans kind of picked up on that as well, and will kind of, it'll like lock into them as well, and they'll kind of get that little nod, really.
Yeah.
Because there's always a play on words with pay-per-views, I feel, with and letters and everything with any kind of wrestling pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've watched like one or two of those in my life. It's always interesting for me when I get to talk to people who work in topics that I don't have any knowledge or not a lot of knowledge in, because number one, I love to learn about it, but number two, it makes me excited to read the books.
Yeah.
I grew up, Disney comics. I grew up with superhero comics, newspaper comic strips, the whole thing. And superheroes were a big part of my life, and I read those for literally decades at some points, and then, I don't want to say when I discovered independence, because I discovered independent books probably around the age of maybe 16 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I can do my own stuff. But at that time, I was still superhero obsessed. And it wasn't until later on in life when I'm like, no, I could tell these type of stories, when I really started to learn about storytelling, that it
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be superheroes, that I started writing other things, and I started writing more science fiction and fantasy and
Mm.
drawing that type of stuff. But still, and those are the type of comics I look for now. I don't read modern day superheroes. I buy collections of the stuff I liked growing up,
Yeah.
you know. But now I'm seeing, like, I'm actually working on a manga right now because
Oh, cool.
I enjoy reading it. I have enjoyed reading it for years.
Mm.
I couldn't even tell you, over a couple of decades now. But I never had the urge to draw one until recently.
Mm.
I always said, I think I could do one if I wanted to, but I I now feel like it's time for me to put one out. And there's a difference in storytelling when you're talking, manga versus like American or European style writing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Even European style can be a little different when you look at now. Like, I grew up on a lot of the Franco-Belgian stuff. I loved like Asterix and you know Peyo's stuff, the Smurfs and Lucky Luke and all those books. I loved those things,
Yeah.
and like when you look at those, I feel the stories aren't as character driven. It's almost as more like where you are. Like, if you want to say, the environments are almost more important than what's going on when you're looking
Yeah.
at those Franco-Belgian books. And then you come to America, and it's all about the heroic deeds and the action and the adventure that you had. But when you
Mm.
look at manga, there's really there's this look of introduce kind of a scene, have this thing, how's this affect the character, and have the character reaction, as opposed to, and it doesn't have to be for a superhero. It doesn't have to be for giant robots or whatever it is.
Sure.
It could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
playing soccer. It could be for whatever. So there's so much difference in how they tell. And I'm like, and right now that's my writing issue is
Mm.
I want to write it to feel like I'm not that it came from Japan, but it has the heart of a manga story. And
Yeah.
I'm falling back into some of my traditional writing. So I'm doing a lot of editing right now at
That's
that
awesome.
and writing. But um, I mean, and I know I just kind of went on a slight tangent. It was about me. I don't like to do that as much. I like to focus on you, but there was a reason behind it, and the reason is do you um, do you feel your writing style is for this book is pulling in that, how do I want to say this? I don't want to say manga. It's not a manga story. It's
Mm.
not that Franco-Belgian. It's definitely, is it, because you come from England, and I know there is a slight difference in writing. Is it more written in that British format, or is it have a bit of the American feel because wrestling is such an American culture? You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, that was my point, really, was, when you write, are you writing, which style are you writing in? Or do you
I
feel for you?
I think because I was like, I think because like 90s cinema and everything was such a big thing for me. I think that I'm quite well. I feel like really well ingrained with like um, yeah, like movie scripts of the 90s and things like that. I've read so many scripts and everything,
Yeah.
and like that feel and everything. I think it's inevitable that a bit of that British humor kind of kicks in at times and everything, and which is, I guess, slightly different to like maybe like the broader like American humor, because this is definitely a comedy as well. There's like a lot of like funny lines in there, and characters maybe embarrassing themselves, or like especially when they've fallen on hard times and everything. I think that maybe the Britishness of me kind of kicks in with those elements. Um, uh, and being willing to kind of like, you know, characters to be quite deadpan about things at times and stuff like that. um I mean, I had, though, when I was writing it, like, as much as I say there was like characters like Hogan and Hitman Hart and stuff,
Mm.
because I was writing it as a movie script originally, you know, I had certain actors and everything that I had in mind for these characters. So I
Mhm.
guess I was kind of writing for like
But yeah.
how would this person like deliver a line and stuff and everything.
Mm.
Um, so I think that probably played into it. You know, for me, the main character, for example, Jack Dallas, you know, it just felt natural to me that that would be like an Arnold Schwarzenegger style character, actor that would play that role. And then I was thinking, well, who would be the foil to that with the Spartan character? And it was like, it'd just be obvious, really, that it would be someone like Stallone, you know, or a Carl Weathers or something that would bounce off. And you know, when you start thinking of that, you're thinking, oh well, like Schwarzenegger and Weathers had their dynamic in Predator, and so you know, all of that starts like feeding into all of this as well. So yeah, it was a bit of everything, really, I guess.
Yeah, no, no, no. Listen, that's great because and the reason I ask that is because I don't get to talk with a lot of people
Mm,
outside of America, on this show specifically, but just going to conventions in America here. Just everybody's American, and we all kind of have our same influences. And people ask,
mm,
"Oh, well, who did you read?" Well, I read Kirby growing up, and I read, Will Eisner and Alex Toth, and
yeah.
all these guys that have these great art styles that we want to emulate or we've brought in, but like nobody really talks about you know overseas stuff, you
Mm,
know and and like I said, I know there's a bit of a writing difference. I'll tell you right now, I'm a huge fan of like British humor. I actually think my Wiz strip, um which you guys don't forget, where is it? Right there at the Wiz comic, every Wednesday on Facebook and Instagram, new strips. Every Wiz strip I feel would actually do better overseas in like England. I think my
yeah.
humor is much better suited for that.
Mm,
Um, and I grew up watching British comedy,
mm,
so it was, I mean, everyone did like Monty Python and stuff, and but I was also the kid. Like I liked it even when I was so young that I shouldn't have been watching it.
sure. Yeah.
So I remember having to kind of sneak those type of things. But I watched a lot of sitcoms, British sitcoms when they came over to America, and I just
Mm,
love, I love the you know I don't know. I guess if you want to use the word, the dryness of it.
yeah. Yeah.
There's a bit of the dryness. I just love that.
Yeah.
I think there's such a great way to tell a joke through you know through
Hundred percent.
that style. And I'm not knocking American comedy, but I mean there's just there's a subtlety. There's it's I think like when it comes to humor, you guys really nail it. So
Yeah, I think something like the American Office, I think, is a really good example of finding that perfect balance. Because I mean, the British Office and everything is, you know, everybody loves it here, and but like when the American one kind of did it, you know, I was one of those that was skeptical and thought, nah, they're not going to be able to pull this off and everything. But when they found like the poignancy of like the Michael Scott character, like in the like I think around like the second season, and you've got that like the larger than life humor that is generally found in American comedy, and you merge that with that kind of British like silliness and quietness at times as well. That is why I think that has kind of found such a following that kind of keeps on growing and everything. So yeah, I love that kind of humor, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, no, that's great. That is, and you know what I got to say, I never finished The Office, either
Really.
of them. I, my wife and I started a while back on the American version,
Hmm.
and we were like, we never watched it when it originally aired, and I was like, this is good, but I don't know. I felt it was a little difficult to get through the first season, so I
Yeah, it's a
kind
bit, but then it finds its feet,
of
and
that's probably what happened. I have to get back through it,
yeah,
and because I could start with the second season, but it's like I want to know everything.
mm. And
Excuse me.
the British one finishes with like a Christmas episode that is kind of a standard really for us to rewatch
Yeah.
every year here. It's just it gives the Brent character such a fitting and yet like not like massively triumphant send off and everything, but I
Mm.
just love that it's kind of true to that character. It's just so
I'll have to
lovely.
I'll have to check it out on the next thing. My wife and I, after we finish binging what we're watching now, or need a break from it, we'll binge something else. Yeah, but because one of the things, and as someone who is, obviously you've written for screen, it's one of the things I find fascinating is that a lot of our American television, a lot of our sitcoms, are remakes of British sitcoms.
Mm,
I mean, we could go back, you know, to the 70s and see things like that, but they or just even TV series like we just mentioned The Office. I remember years ago on the Sci-Fi Channel they had Being Human,
mm.
which was a British show originally, and what else? I mean, just what was the one a couple of years ago that was on CBS? Ghosts. You
I
know,
don't know that one.
it started off as a British show. I don't know what kind, but it's about a girl who almost died, gets a bump on it, and she can see the ghosts that around her. And we have our version here, which my wife and I watched like the first two seasons of.
Mm,
And but yeah, I mean, like a lot of stuff they transfer over here. It's very,
yeah.
very, very interesting, and how they do it. So even and then they add the American flair to it, but
Mm,
it's I don't know. It's just I just have always found that fascinating.
mm,
That we technically import your British stuff and then put our spin on it. It's
yeah. I think at the time when I was writing Star Slam originally, I was heavily binging like Arrested Development, which I think is one of the all time like great comedies, and
yeah.
I definitely feel that like some of the comedy from that probably seeped into my writing with some of these characters. Just because I found those characters so funny in like some of their like the physical ways the like set pieces unfold and some of their line delivery and everything. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that in there. I feel
Yeah.
with one or two of them.
Oh, that's great. By the way, that was a great show. I never finished it, because it went off the air for a bit and then came back.
Yeah,
Go back and watch it, but
so
that was
good.
such a great show.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hold on, I just want to bring back this page up because I like looking at the characters a lot. I
Mm,
think it's a very all great designs, and I'm looking forward to this here. Now the Kickstarter launches on the 30th, the end of the month.
hmm
Um, do you have anything like you could you can discuss on what some of the rewards are going to be for the backers? Are you still planning that? Like,
Still fine tuning a few couple of bits and pieces,
okay,
but there will be like some merchandise available. So we've got some like really cool t-shirts we've designed for this. We've got some options with the Any One World kind of collection as well that will be going in there. And yeah, I'm just looking at now potentially doing maybe some stickers slash maybe like trading cards in the kind of style of what you used to be able to get in the like 90s and everything, which I think would be really cool to
oh,
share. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, just kind of excited to put it live. To be honest, now it feels like I've been doing it for so long because of how long ago came up with the original idea to like just put it out there and everything.
Yeah, no, this sounds like a great thing, and I'm assuming you're gonna have like a digital copy tier and
Yeah,
okay.
definitely. Yeah. And there'll be an early discount offer as well for people signing up and pledging, like within the first like 24, 48 hours.
I am currently logged in, so I got to make sure I am notified at launch. So now you got 13, and you know what? You had 11 when we started. Now you got one more. I'm hoping one came from this show tonight.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, this looks like something fun that I'm really gonna be. I can really get into it. I'm a big science fiction fan. I love everything
Same
I do.
here.
Basically, has a sci-fi feel to it or a fantasy feel, but it's really more sci-fi that I write in.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, that manga that I'm doing right now, I'm not going to go into, but it's a traditional giant robot story.
cool.
And I love that type of stuff. And that was like from my childhood. I'm actually drawing it kind of in the 70s style. So it looks like something that I grew up on. And,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. But right now, I'm just playing with character designs as getting the script done is my important piece right now. But yeah,
yeah. There's definitely like stories like Cowboys versus Aliens, like I say, Galaxy Quest, um, things like the Fifth Element and stuff that kind of like I think were in my consciousness when I was like writing this as well.
yeah,
Because like I say, I'm a big sci-fi fan as well.
yeah. Fifth Element's a movie I still haven't watched either. I couldn't get through. Every time I tried, I fell asleep.
Oh,
Uh,
it's beautiful.
so a lot of people tell me that, but it was 3 times that
Oh,
I
right,
tried
right.
and I fell asleep 3 times. So I'm like, it's not a movie for me. That's unfortunately I'm a big Bruce Willis fan.
Mm,
I'm like big time action movie like Stallone. You put Stallone in a film, I'm there to watch it.
mm.
I'm watching his Tulsa King on the Paramount app right now. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
had a chance to
yeah,
stream
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Loving that. I still got to watch this past Sunday's episode. But yeah, so like I love all those actors, like the people you were talking about as who you envision as different wrestlers. I'm seeing the movie play in my head as you're
Mm,
mentioning these characters, these actors' names. This is, and it's probably when I do eventually like read it with the images, I'm
mm.
gonna now hear those voices
Yeah,
in my head. That's awesome. That was awesome, man. This is gonna be great. I'm gonna I wish you a lot of luck. You got a
thank you.
backer here. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Oh, thank you.
When this comes up, I will definitely be backing. Um, but yeah, I'm out of questions. Is there anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
Just, I mean, like I say, if, I'm always kind of posting more content around it, and I'll be promoting it over the next couple of weeks, really. And so I'm on X at Heartland G, and then on Instagram and Threads, I'm at GHeart316. So yeah, just love more people to follow us. Like I say, I'll be posting some content around this, and then just some like hopefully some fun stuff as well, just to kind of keep it nice and light in the build up to it and everything. So yeah, just thank you so much for kind of having us on, man, to talk about
Oh
this.
yeah, no, I'm had a great time. Listen, when the book is, or you have your next book, because obviously this is one of five. I'd love to
Mm,
have you back on. Maybe bring the artist on. We could talk really about the process, the book, everything. What they went through. Maybe we'll even get Hades on or somebody, and we could talk about how ASAP is helping with everything.
oh, definitely.
Launch party on ASAP Imagination channel on the third, and that's a YouTube channel, right? Is that your
Yep.
yeah?
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
I just want to make sure they have great stuff on there. Go check out ASAP Imagination. Um, follow Jed at the places he mentioned. Just can you say those again? What were they?
So at Heartland G on X, and then G Heart316 on Insta and Threads.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I do welcome you back anytime. I'd love to
Thank
see
you.
and follow how this goes. Keep in touch with me about that. Like I said, I will be backing. So I can't wait for the 30th to see what the tiers are. Because because
Thank you so much.
I'm excited. This is, and you're shipping internationally, so
Yes.
I can get it here in America if I want the actual physical copy. And
Yep, and there'll be no shipping fees as well.
that's even better.
I'm sure Heidi's wanting me to drop that in there, so.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, then let me drop you backstage, do my wrap up, and I'll see you in a moment.
Nice one.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that was, I'm just getting my books again. That was Ged Hartland with Starr Slam. It sounds so good. And I'm honest with you. I read the script. I read it a month ago. I'm just refreshing my memory now. I have like 5 pages left. But it really is what Lori said when she said, hey, I have 6, she read 6 pages and wanted to read more. That's how I felt as I continued to read this. This is going to be a really great story. So if you're someone like me who is not a wrestling fan and is enjoying this, you're going to love the book even more if you are a wrestling fan. So please make sure the link is in the chat there on for the Kickstarter, so you can subscribe early and get notified when it goes to launch on the 30th. So don't forget, go to akidinacomic.com, follow them on Facebook and Instagram, A Kid in a Comic. The Wiz appears in here. This comes out 7 times a year, starting with season 2. This was this August. Make sure you go out and pick that up. You can also, if you find me at shows, I will be selling these along with this book, The Whimsical Wiz, the collection of the complete 2023 collection. I will have that book. And don't forget Bold Venture Press's 2 Zorro books I worked on, Zorro's Exploits and Swordplay and Romance. This is the new one. And yeah, look for me at some shows. I actually will be doing a local show in Wappingers Falls this Sunday. All right, I can get more information. Check out my social media at Michael Grassi at the Wiz Comic, and I'll be posting about that. So with that, guys, I will see you next week. I will have another great guest. We'll have more fun talking comics or cartoons or whatever we're talking about. It'll be a great time. And if you guys are watching from wherever, thank you anytime you're watching. Hopefully you're watching within the time to donate to Starr Slam on Kickstarter. Again, the link is in the comment. Make sure you do that. But thank you guys for watching. Please, if you're watching wherever, like, subscribe, follow. All right. Have a great rest of your night or day or whatever. See you guys later. Bye.